Welcome, everyone, to the 4 Tools to Build the Best Player Experience Ever webinar, brought to you by 2 gaming leaders, Tencent Cloud and Helpshift. I'm Ed Hartman, VP Sales, Channels, and Partners for Helpshift, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm joined by our panelist, Greg Posner, Director of Helpshift Solution Engineering. Greg has been with Helpshift for 4 years and is a lifelong gamer. He loves to talk to customers and prospects and has assisted indies all the way to Quad A studios. Also with us today is Tom Mix-Petrica with Tencent Cloud. Tom is a cloud technology and gaming expert and is excited to share his gaming development insights. As mentioned earlier, this session features 2 gaming technology leaders in Tencent Cloud and Helpshift, who are represented by 2 thought leaders with extensive industry experience. They will discuss the technologies and best practices to help studios large and small deliver the best player experience ever. I'll start the dialogue with the agenda. The technology we will discuss today: WeTest, proactive communication, in-app player support, and ACE, also known as anti-cheat expert. Greg, Tom, obviously we could have showcased a lot of other gaming topics and tools. What gives? Why are we excited to discuss these, and why should gamers or developers care?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. And if it's okay, Tom, I'll start it off here. So I'm Greg. I represent the Helpshift side of things. And I can tell you from the Helpshift side of things, typically we're dealing with your gamer or your end user that's using your app. They're messaging, talking to support agents about issues that they're facing, whether they be gameplay bugs or reset passwords or missing items. And there's always this little bit of a disconnect between the support engineer and then having to escalate things to actual engineers. A lot of times the support engineer acts as a middleman trying to collect data that the engineer needs to troubleshoot, and it puts the support engineer in this strange place where they're just going back and forth and not always creating the best user experience. But what we're able to do with Helpshift is analyze the type of data that's coming in. And what gets exciting is when we look at tools that Tencent Cloud's offering, such as the WeTest or Anti-Cheat Expert, because what we can do is we can create automations from within tools that allow us to escalate directly to the engineers, meaning that end users' data can get directly to engineers without actually having to go through the support agent. It makes it a better experience for all the parties involved because the engineers will get what they need. The support agents will just have to do any sort of external communication once something's resolved. And the player doesn't have to dig through their phone understanding what version of iOS or Android they're running or what version of the app they're running. All this data is automatically collected. And you'll see as we continue to have this conversation, at least what excites me is kind of how these tools all start to work together, whether they be via API or native integration, making really just a world-class experience for the end users.
Yeah, Greg, thanks for the great introduction. And to summarize as well, I think it's all about the customer experience, right? At the end of the day, we want to prevent issues. We want to make sure that the customer and the users are happy with their games and having the support, knowing that the platform is being tested, the data is being monitored, but at the end of the day, the support is also there. So thanks for the intro, Greg. Very excited to be here. Thanks for all the people that have joined us on this webinar.
Yeah, and sure thing, Tom. And I think this next slide will speak kind of volumes to why we're actually here, right? So as I mentioned at Helpshift, we see thousands and thousands of games on our platform that are utilizing it. And what for players that opt in or for companies that opt in, what we have the ability to understand are the types of issues that gamers face, right? So what we're going to take a look at right now is 50 of our more popular online games based off of monthly active users. What we try to do is, no matter what game it is, whether it be a first-person shooter or a strategy or a casual game, people ask the same types of questions, but they'll word it differently, right? Because there's a different audience, it's a different age group, it's a different genre, right? It just happens differently. We have at Helpshift is called Smart Intents, which analyzes it down to the actual intent of the user. So you'll see out of these 50 games, we analyzed all these incoming issues. And what we've narrowed it down to is what we commonly see here as the top issues we see in gaming. You'll see they range from quest and reward type of issues, gameplay issues, and then it breaks it down even more. But the reason why we're being here is because if you take a look at these two specific categories, we're looking at technical issues and gameplay issues. And I can tell you as a former support agent, technical issues kind of become a nightmare. It's this black hole that can really mean anything. Does your game crash? Why did it crash? Where were you? What was your signal? Are you up to date? It's this headache for an agent to try and solve. It also comes down to gameplay type of questions, right? This is the other reason we're here is fair play. You know, when you're out there playing Fortnite or you're playing PUBG or any of these online games, it's great up until you see a cheater. And then all of a sudden the experience is just tarnished. It hurts. You know, you're playing online, you can't beat a cheater. And with Tencent Cloud now, with Helpshift being the front-end communication, Tencent Cloud's tools like ACE and WeTest will be able to start breaking this data down even further, allowing us to really understand what this issue is, making, again, I keep saying this, and so you'll probably hear it a lot more in this, is a better experience for the engineering team because they don't have to have constant communication with the end user or the support agent, better experience for the support agent because they're not acting as a middleman, and better experience for the gamer because the problems are just going to be solved. So we're taking a look at a video, which, you know, this is just frustrations of a gamer, right? Again, once your gameplay crashes, once you see a cheater, it ruins the experience. And we want to be able to solve this problem of how do we fix this issue? How do we make it better so that once you release your game, you know you're going to have that positive experience?
Yeah, and Greg, and I think everybody relates here, right, with this frustration, right? And from both sides, from the user perspective, when there is some issues on a gaming, or there's cheating or any sort of a lag or anything like that, but also on the agency, right, on the developers, the people that has invest so much time and money to really deliver that game, taking from the paper to the screens, right? So there's a lot of effort, and then the end of the day, you see your game not being fully evaluated, right? Because there's so many issues, and that's what we're here for, right? We're here to present you and with a complete end-to-end solution where it comes to the with the developing stage, to the launch of stage, but also to the production and when the game is online, right? That's the idea today. That's the goal. We give you the complete solution so we can all be successful and happy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so Greg, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've got to. I'm the moderator. It's asking us a very important question. What is the most underreported player issue?
And that's a great question. It's something that, you know, for years, we've seen issues coming in, but we don't know what we don't know. And it comes down to what are people not talking about? So it comes down to gameplay bugs. And I am just as guilty as other people about this. I remember talking with one of my customers before about playing a game and the game would crash. And what would I do? I'd just reboot the game. I'd try and get it working. If it wasn't working, I'd stop playing. And they said, you need to tell us this stuff, Greg. Like, this is like important. If the game is crashing, we need to know. It's not like we have this magic tool that will say, hey, the game is crashing. And luckily this magic tool kind of does exist. But like what happens typically, if you think about when the user's playing a game, is the game will crash and I'll either shut the app down for the night. If I'm really enjoying it, maybe I'll find a clone of the game that's just as good, or I'll just try it again later. And what's happening is that information is not getting through to the publisher or the engineers that my gameplay crashed, right? It just, maybe they're looking at specific logs, but there's no true notification of that. And it goes back to what I said earlier. It becomes this black hole that needs to be resolved by a developer that requires a lot of back and forth to be able to resolve that. Now, with WeTest and with Helpshift, what we have the ability to do is route tickets directly to your engineering team. That means if one of your whales is playing a game and the game crashes, we can automatically create a ticket in your ticketing system of choice, whether it be a Jira or another tool, and rank it appropriately. If this is a VIP player that plays, all right, you want to make sure that their ticket gets addressed right away because they're the ones that are paying you. Or maybe our moderator Ed was playing a game and he doesn't really play that often and he opens up a ticket. And maybe we just say, all right, the SLA for a non-VIP is 48 to 72 hours. So you can start to rank that, stack rank those tickets directly to your engineering team and get them the data that's necessary, that metadata that's key. Again, OS, what version of Android are they on? What type of phone are they on? And you can really start to run reporting saying, hey, with the latest version of iOS, we're seeing specific crashing. You can even put that notification out there before your users message in to be proactive on that. And then you can take a look at that 19.9% of issues that are coming in that are gameplay related and start to tell yourself, how can you make a better game? How can you make a better experience for your users? Well, by being proactive and being able to resolve those network issues or potentially skin or crate issues or sound issues, you're going to automatically start reducing the inbound volume that your players are playing or reporting and making a better experience for gamers. We're taking a look at here about what the current experience is for certain games versus kind of what a Helpshift experience is. And on our left-hand side, you'll see there's a lot of text. If you like text, it's great. It kind of showing you, hey, here's how you can troubleshoot your issues. You can look at your drivers. You can look at this. You can look at that. Right? It doesn't even know if I'm on a PC or a Mac. So it's going to give me instructions for everything. And there's a lot of information to come in here. On the right-hand side, this is what Helpshift is like. We proactively, you'll see there's a asteroids type of game. The game has an issue. Something pops up saying, hey, it looks like you may have had an issue. Can you confirm? And then once the user confirms that they had an issue, again, we automatically create that ticket in a ticketing system of choice for your user. So rather than just presenting a long form or post on how to troubleshoot your issue, we're going to proactively reach out to you when there's an issue and say, hey, can you confirm this? And we can get the details necessary so that our developers or engineers can start working on that right away. Okay.
Right. So just a quick question for our attendees. What is the Apple App Store first-time acceptance rate for games or apps?
That's a good question, Ed. Let's see.
60%. So team, time to market matters. What that means is that 40% of first-time submissions are not accepted. The reasons for non-acceptance are sometimes security, but oftentimes they're bugs or crashes. What this means is tools like WeTest and Helpshift should be adopted as early as possible, typically during the friends and family release or limited releases. It's also an opportunity to capture other relevant information. Is the game fun? Is it compelling? Do you like this character? Do you like the weapon selection and so on? The earlier you can get this information, the better games that you can build faster. Tom, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Ed, for the information. I think the audience here would never had a chance or visibility to understand how critical it is, right? And I think one thing I want to mention is that we don't take for granted, but I think for me the most important thing that we see agencies, especially at Tencent, which is the global leaders in gaming in the world, it's revenue, right? Revenue, it is the key motivators, right, for agency, for developers, for indie developers, to really to make sure that their game is successful, right? So, and as Ed says, as early as we can implement those tools in order to catch bugs, cheating, or any sort of bugs or crash or anything that's definitely is going to harm the reputation of that game, it is not considered cost. This is actually an investment, because at the end of the day, 60% that represents money that's not coming in to your bank, right? That's not a money generation for your game. So we definitely want to make sure that we implement those tools and we validate any issues so we can not just raise the customer experience reveals, but also the revenue. The revenue, it is very important.
I think that's really well said. And it kind of all ties into the starting of your game, right? You're going to launch this game. And you have to, the thing we like to hear and what data analysts have told us are that the first 5 minutes are crucial. to keeping players coming back to your game. So your game launches, you want to keep them coming and keep that revenue going. And quite frankly, throughout this whole past few years, gaming has spiked like crazy, and new games, new AAA games, new indie games are getting really high reviews, getting high usage, right? And if you want to keep players coming back, you need to make sure those first 5 minutes are great. You need to make sure that they're not crashing, they're not seeing cheaters, because if you want your players to return, if you want users to keep playing the game, it has to be that great experience. And this starts in pre-production, making sure that you're not having any bugs, right? You want to make sure that you have a way to communicate. You want to make sure you're looking out for cheaters. So those first 5 minutes of your game that players are playing, they're crucial.
Yeah, and on top of that, one thing that I also an early developer back in the days, and one thing that I want to mention about this, not only for the experience, for the reputation, but also because the social media has become so strong that we don't even have the studios, the developers, or the users. They don't have the luxury to really stop and develop that crash or that feature that will fix those problems, in release next week. The social media is way faster than any developer out there, right? So any bug fix or any bug releases. So that's another important thing that we didn't have in the past. We didn't have beta 1, alpha, all those releases. Nowadays, everything is real time. That's why we want to make sure that when you launch a game, we already prep. How we do that? By leveraging tools like Helpshift and WeTest to validate that your game has the resources needed and is ready to launch. So
I think that's a great point, Tom. Gamers don't even need to buy games anymore. They can watch someone play on Twitch, right? And if someone on Twitch has a bad experience, that whole audience of people watching it are also going to say, forget that. I'm not going to download that game. So I think that's a great point, saying if it's not polished, and yes, certain things you can get away with in beta and alpha and like that, but if it doesn't have that right polish and the wrong influencers have access to it, it's going to go viral in ways you don't want to go viral. So getting ahead of it before then is essential.
Awesome. Yes, I agree.
All right.
Yeah, what a great transition, right? As we were talking about some sort of experiences and getting ready for launch. So let me just introduce you quickly about one of our tools that's called WeTest. It is basically a one-stop solution for quality assurance. So here it is, everyone. So for people here in this webinar that never heard about WeTest, so this is basically the tools that I'm not gonna say all of the agencies out there or the game studios, but the majority of the largest ones, like for example, we have here PUBG, right? PUBG Mobile, one of our major title. So they use WeTest to make sure that they have an idea about the potential launch of a game, the scalability, the performance, how many resources are needed for the user, the latency, all that data that's being analyzed and monitored upfront before any launches. So that's how, for example, tools like those, like PUBG Mobile, for example, and many others that we have in our website are able to promote a great experiences during launch or any new releases, right? Those games are being running for years and years, and we never heard anything as far as crashes or bugs. Why? Because they take their time and investment to invest in tools that will prep them for success. They don't test the water, right? They don't launch games and see how the users will behave and then come back and changes things, right? They know what are the bar that the users are setting, right? They want a high quality network, high quality performance in a very low latency. So for you that's joining us, this is our WeTest. It's a Tencent proprietary product that we use for quality assurance. That could be on a developer phase, that could be for in-game demo and resources, but also for monitoring the infrastructure or any logs or data or code that your gaming is being exposed to. So this is one of our leader products. It's being used for more than 1,000 users out there. And then we have more than 200 countries. It's a global product. It's being used for, as I said, for the largest agencies out there, for the most famous games that you can think of. I'm pretty sure, well, 90% of them, right, are being used with tests. So not gonna go in all the details of the WE test, but on the next slide, I just wanna show you a little glance. So again, this is just a clip. Don't get hung up on the details. The idea here is not to teach you how to use WE test, but I just wanna give an idea how powerful is this tool. For example, in this case, one of our studios is basically demo one of our battle games, right? So they basically create a scenario of a battle game, which is 5 versus 5, and they create a time frame of log collection. So they're basically monitoring every metric, as you see on the right side, every metric of the game. That could be CPU, that could be network latency, that could be access to the data, that could be RAM, that could GPU loading. So all these metrics are actually being able are actually collected in real time and automatically being uploaded to a repository of data. Then later on, the engineers can go back there and analyze that data to see if there is any spikes, to see if there is any resources that was missing or any bugs on the code. So that's how powerful WeTest is. It's a multi-platform software that could work for iOS, Android, and PC. And they can also work with any I would say operation systems devices, like for example, iOS, different versions of devices as well. So again, very excited.
Ask a quick
So,
question.
yes, I'll
When
pause
are
here.
typically when do customers typically deploy WeTest? Is it when you're getting close to your initial launch? Is it when you write that first line of code? Well, what makes the most sense here?
Great question, Greg. So there's no right time to implement Q&A tools, right? Even though it's a quality assurance, majority of our, I would say, the old school way of testing your code is let the developers run, they compile, and you test it. Nowadays, we do quality assurance in real time. Every code that's written or every launch that's being released, it is being tested in real time. So if I have to give a recommendation, it is early as possible. As soon as you have a product that's launchable, that's playable, you should be already testing that. For one main reason, you don't know how that's going to behave when you have a massive usage of that game, right? So as early as possible, you can determine how many resources or how many things you can improve on your data, on your code, or on the resources that that game is running to is better for you up front. That way you have time to redirect the course in case there's any changes. What I've seen so far is people develop the entire game. When they go to launch, that game is taking so much resources or it's not efficient in a way that's crashing without even having a chance to improve. So as early as possible.
That's really cool.
But
So
we test,
you can really stress test your game before going live, right? Making sure that those multiplayer quirks are all taken care of before something breaks it.
Yes, and then we avoided that thing. Oh, it was running on my PC. It was running great on my laptop. No, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that your game is running, especially on the Tencent Cloud platform, but your game should be behaving in the same way in any platform. So let me just so one of as I said, WeTest is a one-stop solution for quality assurance, for testing and the entire platform for your gaming, right? That could be on the code, that could be the resources, that could also be on launch as it's running. And one of the tools, it's PerfDog. PerfDog is actually the major component of WeTest for client performance and monitoring and testing tools. So I know, Greg, you mentioned about when the users are playing the game and the game crash or something. That's the that's basically the activity, the main responsibility of PerfDog. We have this name because that's how the game was actually invented. The tool was actually created by Tencent decades ago, and they just kept the name. But if you really understand the tool behind it, is this tool is really capable of detecting anomalies on your code, anomalies that will crash your game, that will create bugs to your game. And how we do that? We use data that we collect, that we know by running games in a very scale and a massive way. So, and again, I'm not gonna go in every single detail about PerfDog, but just be aware that this is a tool that will give you the continuous monitoring for your game and infrastructure that's running on top.
So I think PerfDog kind of leads into this next slide of how are Helpshift and Tencent Cloud, and in this case, WeTest specifically, going to work together to make a better gaming experience. Well, when it comes to bugs and stability, right, PerfDog is understanding from the user level who's having any types of issues with their game. If we see that a user is having a specific issue, what Helpshift can do is send a proactive notification to them saying, hey, did something just happen? Did you just crash? Did you just whatever, right? You basically can see in those logs what type of issue you want to be able to potentially send that user. That user can then come in and confirm, yeah, I did have that issue. So now we'll capture, all right, that user's on iOS 13. They're using the latest version of the iPhone. The app is not up to date. They're on cellular data. All this data can automatically be passed to that ticketing tool set of choice. And what this is going to do is it's going to take those two tools together to provide that better experience for that user. It's going to proactively let you work on these bugs and make sure that you're releasing a game that's stable and works really well. That then in turn leads you to improvement and churn, right? We talked about the first 5 minutes being important. It also goes beyond that, right? You want players to keep coming back. You want to make sure that people are happy, and we want to make sure that we're creating a game that is appealing to your users. This allows you to reach out to your users via Helpshift to find out if they're still enjoying themselves. If they're not coming back after a certain period of time, you have that ability to. You also then start to use tools like Anti-Cheat Expert to say, hey, was there a cheater? Can you report someone, right? Understand, most important part of getting someone to come back is making sure they had a good experience. And like I said a little earlier, once you have that cheater that comes in, it diminishes the whole game itself, and it makes you not want to come back next time because it's not a fair environment anymore. And what Anti-Cheat Expert, I'm not going to take too much of Tom's steam here because he's probably going to talk about that next, but using that will help you provide an automated tool that allows you to understand, hey, is there a cheater? Do we want to ban them? Do we want to unban them? Finally, the last thing we want to touch on in this slide is talking about the last piece of data we want to collect, which is feedback. If your game is having an issue, you don't want them to run to the Play Store or the iTunes Store and give you 1 star. It's going to hurt your game in the long run. Having that high customer satisfaction, having that high just feedback on your game itself is important. What Helpshift can do is provide you to collect that feedback before it goes to the Play Store to make sure that, hey, did you have a good experience? If you didn't have a good experience, was it because there was a cheater? Was it because of a bug? Was it because of something else, right? Collect this data up front so you know how to properly handle yourself. I know a few years ago, we had a customer that was getting low feedback score, and we found out that a lot of the ads that they were displaying did not relate at all to the game that they actually had, and people weren't happy about that. So we were able to collect that feedback before they went to the Play Store and give that, and that's nothing a customer support agent can do, right? So you triage it to the appropriate department that can handle that. And the same thing with feedback and bugs, right? With WeTest collecting all this information, if the bug crashes, why have the agent do anything? Just get that data automatically pushed to the engineer that they need, and they can handle it from there.
What a great segue, Greg. First to talk about one of the most hated, right? User experience when you facing cheating of any sort, right? And so for the people here that's joining us, Tencent has developed this tool, which is probably one of the oldest tools we have in our portfolio. It has more than 20 years of experience. It's a tool that prevents basically any sort of a cheating in games, right? Not just shooting games, right? And as you can see here, I think we all have faced frustrations when you're playing any games, and then out of the sudden you're killed by a flying tank, right? That definitely not a very common shooting tactic, right? So this is clearly a cheating. So, and why that it's really important for us, right? Tencent, it is the largest gaming studios in the world. It is the largest gaming company in the world. We own and publish and manage one of the majority of the most famous gaming titles. And why we invest so much in cheating? Because as I mentioned earlier, that really harms the reputation of the company, the reputation of the title, and also the revenue. Not only that, but the user experiences as well. Because as I mentioned, the studios, they invest so much time and efforts to develop that game, and then out of the sudden you're being hacked, and that game goes to limbo, right? Nobody plays that game as it should, right? So when it talks to ACE, what is ACE, right? If I wanted to summarize, it's basically a collection of mechanisms that we created over time based on machine learning that detects anomalies on the data that's being run by that game platform or by behaviors that users has in a specific game situation. Like, for example, a flying car, that's clearly a code change, right? So next slide, please. So for example, these are just an ideas of types of cheatings that we see very often in the game industry today. And and then also it's the same as the antivirus, right? The same way we have those cheatings, we created those capabilities to detect those cheatings. Like for example, modifiers, which is basically changing the source code that's run on the gaming. Like for example, cheatings, they go and they mimic the game code in order to I would say to being hacked, to hack the memory or the CPU that's processing that game. We also have the speed change, which change the mechanism, the dynamic of the game. We also have virtual machines, which most refer to bots. So, for example, bots that will by repetitive activities will create coins, will generate money, will create some sort of the advantage for the people playing against them, right? So, but that could also be any sort of a bot, right? To really make the game some sort of um, um, different, right? From the user human being perspective, right? So, and then we also have another one, which is 102 option. This is sort of a like for example, for like table games, like poker or any sort of games where there's people that somehow discovered the algorithm to um, somehow find the same table, and then they know one another that's playing on that same table, and they some sort of a communicate on the background of the game in order to cheat someone playing with cards, right? Or could be any sort of a 102. So anti-cheating, why that tool is very powerful? Because I want to talk about that, but also when I don't want to confuse people. I'm not here to teach code. This slide is very informative because cheating nowadays, when it comes to cheating, right? When I was young, and maybe you relate to that as well, we all remember, going online and getting that list of codes. But those codes were, cheating codes, right? Where developers, they created that just to make a little fun of their games. But nowadays, this is a different type of cheating. We're talking about people that are really hacking the games, and they're hacking the code, the source code. And this became very complex for human like developers to detect, or even for the computers itself that's processing that information to detect. So Tencent Cloud or Tencent, with more than 20 years of experience with scientists, they create machine learning, and that's how we are able, and we are only able to detect coding in that level, because we're talking about here not code on the client level, but we're talking about codes here that's being run on the CPU, on the compute power level. So again, this is just a simple shell code where people try to mimic the executable of a gaming by changing its variables. And then when the computer, and they inject that processor into the CPU of the computer, and then when the computer runs, it kind of pretends it is for the gaming, but it's not. It's a cheating code. So again, this is just a way to show you how complex cheating has become. And unfortunately, for the past 5 years, cheating has just outgrown by almost 30-40% a year. So we're not just combating cheating, but we also seeing this has become a very large market that we are trying to solve as well. So
do you see, Tom, and I think this is fascinating, right? I don't often see this side of cheating. I'm often the one just dying and I'm wondering why that happened. But how often are tools like this, clearly it's cloud-based, but like how often does it get pushed updates? Because I have to imagine new forms of cheating are coming out quite often. And first off, I can't imagine someone trying to do this on their own, right? It's just, you'd have to have an impossible number of manpower to be able to do that, right? So at least to power the cloud allows you to aggregate that data.
yes, very good point. As I said, this is impossible for human capabilities to monitor, right, and read this. So the way ACE work is an API-driven service. So basically, you integrate your code, your source code, and that gameplay to the ACE platform, and then this is being monitored in real time. So in every single gameplay, it's being monitored, because remember, we teach ACE to understand the real code. Everything else is cheating. We don't try to understand every cheating out there because they just become impossible to map. But we do the opposite. We teach the code, the ACE code, to detect what is the right code. Then everything else, it is an alert, right? And we also, I didn't mention that, but the ACE platform, there is a way for you to block the users. There's so many that just alert and detect the cheating. We also manage the end-to-end policies against the cheater users by blocking, by alerting, by sending message, or even to ban those users as well. So, and that's a good question, Greg. Glad you asked.
It's cool stuff. It's kind of mind-boggling.
All right. Well, great discussion, Greg, and thank you, Tom. Here's our call to action. If anyone is interested in a free trial of Helpshift and our capabilities, just scan the QR code in front of you, and we're happy to set you up. And we'd also be able to introduce you to Tom for a deeper dive in his tech stack as well. All right, now we're into the Q&A session, right? We've been talking at you. Now it's your chance to ask us the things that are top of mind for you. And by the way, I've been monitoring while Greg and Tom have been talking. A lot of people are asking variant of the same question. So I'll push this over to Greg first. Greg, we're a mobile shop, or we're a PC shop, or we're all of the above console shop. Are there any platforms that Helpshift cannot support?
There are no platforms today that Helpshift can't support, whether you're, like you said, mobile, PC, console. Heck, even if you just have a smart TV that has some sort of issue going on, right? I see Game Passes on Samsung TVs now, right? So it can be worked on any platform. We provide the same experience no matter what platform you're coming from. I didn't mention social, but social is another network as well. So we do support all those channels where any customers will want to reach out to you. I also didn't mention Discord, but yeah, any of those major customer channels that your users are talking on, Helpshift does support today.
Greg, thanks. Tom, the same question, and I'll throw it over to you.
Yes, thanks, Ed. So I didn't talk much about Tencent Cloud itself. We did specifically talk about 2 products, but we also offer a very comprehensive cloud platform out there, so that we can not only offer WeTest and ACE, which are services, but we also have a very comprehensive portfolio that can go from compute, network, storage, and we are multi-platform as well, right? We has to be. So any of our products they work in multi-platform environments. So feel free to test. I encourage everyone to go to our Tencent Cloud .com and also create an account. We offer free credits for anybody that's want to test as well. So, and if you have any questions, send us an email. We're glad to help you.
And Tom, while you're talking, I've got your next question. I've explored other ACE solutions and have decided our studio wants to deploy a solution. Can you share why the Tencent solution is superior to other offerings? And I should add, it says that they're a PC and console studio. They're predominantly PC and console.
Correct. Yeah. In regards to the ACE, to be honest, I don't think there's anything out there that comes close to the power that we have for the last 2 decades managing and operating in a massive scale. Because Tencent Cloud, as I said, it is the largest company, gaming company in the world. So we are our own users for the majority of those products. And not only that, we recently decided to market those products. So, but those products being tested, they being used in a massive scale in a global way. So, and I think the story that Tencent has on the market is a reputation. So we don't have any issues when it comes to compatibility, when it comes to serving the customer. So and that's why we came today and we share those 2 products, because what we find out is they're not very famous when it comes to the public, right? That's why we are now double down on our message to make sure that everybody knows that we have a very great product that you can take you from 0 to 100 in a very fast way. Why are you going to invest so much time and energy recreating things if Tencent is now offering its own platform for you to use it? So that's the message here.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Greg, this next one's for you. One of the first slides, I think it was either slide 3 or 4, had a chart that graphically showed what the player issues were. It looks like it's a great tool for triple and quad A studios. Is there a way that indies and or mid-tier studios like us can benefit or leverage the data that you'd shared earlier?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I would play devil's advocate to say that I think it's a more powerful tool for your indies and your mid-tier startups rather than your large studios, because, and I'll give you the reason why, and then I'll go backwards, but it allows you to understand the types of questions that are coming in and route them directly to the right people. A lot of the indies that we talk to don't even have a full support team. So if we understand the types of issues that are coming in, we can make sure that they're classified properly and sent to the right teams and allow you to resolve that quickly. What's nice about triple and quad A studios, like you mentioned, are that they have a ton of data. And what we can do is we can, if they want us to, we can scan their own data. The chart you saw was 50 top online MAU game by MAU that we have, but we also have it broken up by genre. We have it broken up by many different ways. We do run it for these studios. And what we do learn are the types of issues that they face. What indies and mid-tiers can learn from that, take a look at our player support benchmark report that we released, and we aggregate that data that they can then basically say, hey, we want to put game crashing and we want to put reset password. We want to put these top issues that others are seeing in our games. So there is that trickle down where they can start to leverage that data used by AAA and quad A companies, and they can use that for their own advantage.
And the same question goes over to you, Tom. It looks like your tool is really weighted towards, again, the bigger studios. Can smaller studios and indies benefit from WeTest and ACE-like tools?
Absolutely. I think that's the goal. Where before this was only a privilege for the largest ones, where they had the money, they have the investment, or they have the capability to build their own tools to get started. But nowadays, with the power of our Tencent Cloud platform, we are able to provide the solutions for any users out there, small single developer to an indie agencies or to AAAs, to the largest ones they're already using. So we don't offer these products on package. We offer them per license space. So this is basically per game. So it's definitely available for anybody in any scale of the business right now.
So Tom, while you're still speaking, I had someone say, well, we're a Crashlytics shop. Does that mean that I can't use your ACE solution? Can I mix and match tools?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no harms to combine tools, right? As long as they're comfortable with what the tools can give you to them as a feedback, as a resources for them. We're very confident that our tool is a very complete solution that we also, but I've seen customers using, yes, a combination of tools. And again, it all depends on their comfort zone or their comfort level. And we have no problems with that. As long as, again, they test their games, they make sure that they understand the level of the resources, and they are comfortable in launching that game without any issues.
Okay, terrific. And Greg, another competitive question here. We're a longtime Zendesk shop. The discussion was interesting, but really, why should we consider Zendesk replacement?
I think there's different levels to take a look at this. There's certain features that Zendesk offers that I think are great tools. I think where we kind of really hit the mark is when you want to offer that in-game support specifically, right? You want to make sure that you don't bounce someone from your game to either go to Chrome or Safari. Like we talked about cheating before, it kind of diminishes the experience when you have to pop someone out from the actual game itself. I think we also, when we talked about smart intents just before with my question, right? I think the smart intents is really a game changer. It really starts making predictive choices on how you want to roll out your automation, how you want to roll out support. There was a time and day when you had to call between specific hours to get support. And if you didn't, support wasn't available, or you'd send an email or you'd wait 24 to 48 hours to hear back. With automations and bots and using our intent to get you from A to B, we can really start to fully automate this so we can give players real-time support at their convenience, right? You don't need a 24/7 global support team anymore. You can still have it, but you can also have bots running 24/7. And if a bot can't resolve it, then you let the player know, hey, someone will be back early tomorrow and we'll get back to you. And I think those are really the differentiator makers. You kind of hit a plateau at some point with some of our competitors. And if you really want to start taking it to that next level, you take a look at, all right, well, how can I pull in some of these other tools? How can I use my own data to improve the actual experience itself? And I think that's where Helpshift really shines.
All right, Tom, I'll turn it back to you for some closing comments, and then we'll do some key takeaways.
Thank you, Edward. And I want to thank you again, all the attendants that join us for this webinar. We're very excited to offer you this complete solution, and I think will be very beneficial for your company to evaluate both of those tools. And again, I'm Tom from Tencent Cloud. We're very happy to share a little bit of our experience, a little bit of our products. And again, if you want to learn more, just check it out, tencentcloud.com, and we're happy to help you with any inquiries or any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Hey, and I'd like to also thank our panel for their insights, as well as our attendees for their time, their attention, and their questions. So to summarize, here are a couple of the key takeaways. The one that I didn't put out there was, I think I heard that we should deploy these tools, regardless of whether it's WeTest or ACE or Helpshift and feedback. We should deploy these tools in advance of GA. Earlier is better. And bugs, crashes, and hangs represent the highest percentage of player issues. They're also the most underreported. Frustrated players play less. They express their frustrations on social channels to the detriment of the brand. And these issues can result in decreased downloads and, in worst case scenarios, uninstalls. Number two, developers need WeTest. Let's build better games and let's do it faster. The way to do this is to increase bug and crash visibility. Leverage tools to automate, to prioritize, to replicate, and resolve issues faster. Tools like Helpshift increase player communications, and deliver critical player insights to studios. Metadata is provided to prioritize player issues, speed up replication, and deliver a superior player experience. Ultimately, happier players play more and spend more. And finally, Anti-Cheat Expert ensures fair play for all. Studios and developers can deliver the best overall player experience by leveraging Tencent Cloud solutions. Thanks, everyone. See you at our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.